Hello everyone, I'm Bruffy1322. In this video we'll showcase the lap times, top speeds and race tiers of all vehicles from the GTA 5 Safehouse in the Hills update, including day 1 and drip feed vehicles all collected together. If you want to see all vehicles from all classes as well as more background on this testing as a whole, check the original testing videos in the playlist linked in the description, and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on future testing of new vehicles added to GTA 5 and beyond. And as we probably expected, we start with the Cataleast, which doesn't quite do enough to top the utility class and dethrone our 2013 champion of the Saddler. The Cataleast sits in second place in the class, a good 7 seconds per lap slower than the Saddler, and about 3 seconds per lap quicker than the Slam Truck in third, but with the Slam Truck having an over 10 mph top speed advantage, there could be some tracks where it's, somewhat interesting between the two. So this video does serve as an update to the 2024 Supers, Sports Classics, Sedans, Utility, Service and Emergency videos, and will sit above them in the testing playlist, as we had new cars from each of those classes released from the Mansions DLC. This video allows you to see where these new vehicles place within those classes when you watch those original 2024 videos and the other DLC update videos, which again are all at the top of the playlist, linked in the description and the pinned comment. So now we've got the Norway Vivinite. That's our next slowest vehicle from the DLC, and it's basically just a stock regular Vivinite in terms of performance, and obviously under normal circumstances can't be driven, but it's actually second place in the Service class, and since it's only beaten by the Taxi Custom, which is just a fully upgraded regular taxi, you could argue it's the fastest in the Service class when only counting the rest of those vehicles, none of which get upgrades. The Sentinel XS4 is our sort of, I guess you could say, slowest normal vehicle. It's not in the utility or service class like our first two. 7th in the sedans class isn't too bad in terms of its lap time, but it does have a really decent top speed with 127 mph, making it quite an interesting driving experience, but certainly not doing enough to, top the top of the sedans class or make it, interesting in terms of the top tier for racing. Next up, we've got our new vehicle for today with the Buffalo Cruiser, the first of 2 emergency class police vehicles, and it's okay. It's 7th place for the emergency class, which has now over 30 vehicles. Isn't too bad. A 1 minute 5.1 lap time is relatively quick. It's all right. I think this makes it the quickest of the sort of original. The original body shape of the Buffalo, slightly quicker than the Sprunk Buffalo, but it's nothing special. It's just kind of 7th and 10th for lap time and top speed. Nothing to really write home about. The GT750 is kind of a similar story, I guess, as well when it comes to the Sports Classics class, 11th and 13th in that class for lap time and top speed respectively. It kind of sits in that mid pack of Sports Classics where it's it's got a decent lap time. It's grippier than what you would expect, but it's certainly not going to be, troubling the top spots when it comes to racing. But it fits into tier B, so it adds to, one of the other tiers if you're able to restrict your cars for races. The Australi, another sports classic, is next, and not too far away really from the GT750 at 103.6. Obviously, we've got the HSW upgrade of the Australi that we'll see later on in the video, but the regular version of the Australi, when HSW is disabled or if you just don't have it upgraded, it's a competent A-tier sports classic car around the same level as things like the Turismo Classic and stuff like that, without thinking about HSW. And it is sort of just off the very top spot with obviously the Uranus Low Speed is the fastest non-HSW sports classic for when HSW is disabled, but has a pretty poor top speed. The Australi and now the Itali Classic, which is only 1,000th of a second quicker than the Australi, in 6th place for Sports Classics, are just behind the Uranus Low Speed and just ahead of the Turismo Classic and the old sort of breed of top Sports Classics. So that A tier for this class when it comes to races is quite interesting now. There's quite a lot of vehicles that are separated by around a second of lap time, but ultimately the Uranus Low Speed is still going to be the number one. So next we've got our second of our new police cars with the Buffalo STX Pursuit, and of course the new shiny police car that costs over $5 million and is locked behind a GTA Plus paywall for a week would be the new fastest car for lap time for the emergency class. Why would it not be? While it doesn't have the top speed of the Coquette D10 or the police bike, which are in 2nd and 3rd place now, it's not too far down on the coquette at least, and it corners very nicely to take that top spot. Not that it really matters because you can't race with these cars anyway, but it is ultimately around the lap the quickest. The Luiva, our first supercar next, and what it was it is the slowest of the supercars to be added with this DLC in terms of lap time at least, only down in 39th place because it just doesn't really have that great in terms of cornering performance or grip. But that 136 mph top speed does make it the fastest non-HSW supercar in the game for top speed at least. So that's at least something for the Luiva, but E tier, considering it's crazy to think of 101, like that's a very quick lap time, and that's down in the E tier in 39th place for the supers class. It's crazy how the game has moved on, but and a perfect example of that is the HSW Australia with it's second place for the Sports Classics class. It is just behind the Turismo Classic in outright performance when it comes to lap time and top speed, actually, in terms of comparing it to the HSW Turismo Classic. But it's probably going to be most people's pick, I think, because it's a lot nicer to drive than the Turismo Classic. The Turismo is a lot more challenging, especially when you put the HSW upgrade on it, and the Australia is just a really nice one to have for Sports Classic racers at the very top. The Extreme is kind of your bog standard electric supercar that we seem to get in every single DLC these days. They're all kind of copy pastes of each other. They all seem to get a 59-second lap time, around 120 odd mph top speed. The Extreme is actually 19th place for supers in both lap time and top speed, so it's quite a rarity there to share the position for both. But yeah, they're all the same, whether it's a Pipistrello or whatever. Like, they're all just kind of the same and much of a muchness when it comes to electric supercars these days. The FMJ Mark V, on the other hand, is quite special. I mean, this is the non-HSW version of it, and already it gets up into that top echelon of supercars in 5th place for the class, just behind the Emirates, which is obviously the number one sort of non-HSW supercar for when HSW is disabled. The FMJ Mark V is right there with it as well, with a really high top speed of 133 miles per hour. That's close to being the top non-HSW top speed for a supercar. All round great performance, and when you add HSW to that, you obviously get an absolute monster. With a 54-second lap time, it's only the second ever vehicle to have hit that 54-second mark, to go underneath the magic 55 seconds. It's the second fastest car to ever lap around this track in the game. It's easily the number one supercar, and it's just, there's not an awful lot more I can say about this one. We've covered it in great detail. On most tracks, it is probably going to be the fastest car in the entire game. We'll see the amazing comparison that we have at the very end as well, because I couldn't not leave it in. But yeah, the DLC has given us obviously the first place new number one for the emergency class, and it's also given us what is essentially, for most cases in most situations, the new number one across all vehicles in the game, all cars at least. So, talking of the new police cars, first of all, they've ironically, the new police cars that we've had in this DLC have kind of been relatively well balanced, with the sort of slower Buffalo Cruiser being on similar pace to the Gauntlet Interceptor from a previous DLC, and the faster STX Pursuit, which you're seeing here, while obviously being quicker around the lap than the top two that we previously had of the police bike and the Coquette D10, is slower for top speed than those two. And if you could actually race with these cars, they would give quite an interesting experience and some cool tiers to race with, but they are just still $5 million paperweights that you don't get any money back for when you sell them, at least when it comes to those of us who like to use cars for races. So I'm still waiting for them to let us own a bunch of the older police cars, like the original police cruiser, which actually has a bunch of hidden mods ready to go, and they're in traffic all the time. Just let us buy one, since for me at least these new ones just don't really do it. They're not all that, to be honest. But 2 new class toppers in 1 DLC, so that's something. One for the emergency class, and obviously with the FMJ Mark V, you can see on the comparison, this is a comparison that I played at the very end of the original sort of testing video for the DLC for the day 1 cars. I made it into its own short vertical video because it's just crazy how different these 2 cars are in the way that they build their lap time. The FMJ Mark V is incredible in the corners, but obviously has a much higher top speed than the BR8, and the BR8 is just even faster in the corners and still holds the lap record around this track for a car. But I think, like I said, on most circuits with more top speed segments, the FMJ Mark V is probably the fastest car in the game in most situations. But yeah, that's everything for this video. Please consider supporting on Patreon or become a YouTube member if you want to support this work and get some extra perks for doing so, such as early access to videos and other testing results. Also remember to read the description for more info, comment with your thoughts, like the video if you enjoyed or found it helpful, and subscribe for more. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.